back. What are you doing? Just back off.
Back off. Back off. What are you doing,
Jeez.
man?
Don't be so aggressive with your stretching.
Yeah.
There's no
Jeez.
prize.
It's about stretching, not tearing tissue.
Running with Maverick and Wolfman. Maverick here.
Wolfman here. Don't forget to find us on Facebook, Instagram, X, the big one, YouTube. When you find us on YouTube, please consider subscribing and following us. We also have a pretty good show for you today. But before we start, Mav, don't forget, if you like trail runs, March 22nd, trail running, pancake breakfast, bonfire, maple madness, mud, sweat, syrup. See you there.
All in that order.
All in that order.
Listen, special guest tonight, right here, Mr. Treadmill.
The Millie. Get that out
I
of
thought
here.
you'd enjoy that.
We're going to blur
I thought
that.
you'd enjoy that being in there tonight.
We're going to edit that out for the video release.
I was like, where am I setting up tonight? Oh, yeah, I'm doing the treadmill on Wolfman.
That's funny. It's a little warmer, so we're back in the garage.
Yeah, it's warming up. The weather's changing, people.
It is.
So tonight we're going to talk about stretches.
Yeah, because you don't want to pull a hammy because it's not that warm.
Listen, pulling a hammy's no fun, all right? I've done that a couple times. Have you ever pulled it for real?
I don't think so. Knock on wood, I don't think I've ever seriously pulled a muscle. We've had some tweaks and things like that, but
listen, I was playing soccer in cold weather, travel soccer, pulled my hamstring, thought I'd go right back in, right? Like stretch a little bit, go back in. You don't go back in when you seriously injure that, especially not for a sport like that. It's not something you just work through.
No, sir.
All right, so let's talk about that. So it's important to warm up and stretch. Wolfman hates stretching, but he does it.
I do. I've even come around to it more now since starting our podcast and diving back into the running world and reading some more books and coaching. I do it more than I used to, but I'm still not
All
a
right,
big
so why don't you
fan of
start
it.
us off with the stretch? What are you thinking?
I good old fashioned hamstring stretch, the standing one. I like to get my feet about shoulder width apart, toes relatively straight forward, and then just bend at the waist. Trying to keep your knees relatively straight. A little bit of bend is okay. And you're just going down to where you can. I like to keep my arms straight. Some people like to cross them. Some people that are freaks of nature, they can touch the ground. I can't do that. The biggest thing I find is don't bounce, right? Go down there, let the stretch happen. Let gravity do its thing. There's no need to bounce. Hold it. I recommend about 30 seconds, 4 or 5 times. Should be a good stretch.
So Wolfman's talking about a static stretch, not a dynamic stretch.
Yeah,
So if you're a sprinter or if you're used to some kind of fast twitch muscle activity, we're not talking about the dynamic stretching. We're talking about static stretching. He's talking about the good old fashioned hamstring stretch.
Yes.
My personal preference would be to sit down on a, a table or a sofa or something like that, put the leg out straight, one leg's off, lean forward that way. It's easier on the back. It's a nice, good one leg at a time hamstring stretch versus the two at a time, which is what Wolfman described.
Mhm. Yeah, I like to mix it up. I do a bit of dynamic, a bit of static. Usually the static after. I do both the hamstring stretches, the one I mentioned and the one you did, because there's a lot of fibers in these muscles. So you wanna stretch. And what I have found is that some people get a better stretch with a slightly different variation of a particular stretch, and everybody's a little different. I like to mix it up. I like to include all of them.
Right, right, right. Very good, very good.
Static.
All right, I'm gonna do the opposite. Instead of the hamstring, now I'm gonna go with quad stretch. All right, so the quadricep is your four muscles in the front of the thigh, opposite the hamstring, which is the three muscles in the back. All right, so getting into that one, I like to do that laying prone, which is on your stomach, pulling your heel back as far as it can go comfortably. That keeps the hip in a really good position, and you get a really good stretch, holding it for a good 30 seconds, four times, like Wolfman said, maybe even longer, maybe shorter, varying it up a little bit depending on how I feel. When you get really good at these stretches, you're going to kind of know what you need. Okay, so longer, prolonged stretches are to get length and muscle. Sometimes you're just trying to get the muscle warmed up for an activity, for a run, for whatever. Okay, so you can vary that up, but that's what I like to do. You can also do that laying on your side, standing up. There's a bunch of different ways. So the
Yeah.
quadricep stretch.
Standing up works really well if you have a partner or something to hang on to. It's a good balance test if there's nobody around.
I like balance
Uh,
test. All right, what's your next stretch, Wolfman?
so the next one I usually do right after that standing hamstring stretch. Um, my athletes really like it. It's not that hard to do. Keep your feet the same or bring them a little wider, and then you kick your hip out to the side, maybe your right hip toward the right side, and you should feel that stretch on the inner thigh on the left leg. Again, hold a few 40, 30 seconds, 4 or 5 times. Just work on that stretch. Stretching isn't comfortable, but it shouldn't be painful, right? But if you're not feeling anything, then you're not stretching.
Right, right. So Wolfman's talking about an adductor stretch with the inside of the thigh, basically getting to the point of feeling a little bit of discomfort, possibly a good stretch, we call it, but not uncomfortable, not severe pain, nothing like that.
Right. And if you find a stretch is painful or, ooh, that's a lot, just back off. You are the one in control of the stretch.
Just back. What are you doing? Just back
Back
off.
off. Back off. What are you doing,
Jeez,
man?
don't be so aggressive with your stretching.
Yeah.
There's no
Jeez.
prize.
It's about stretching, not tearing tissue.
Not straining everything. All right. So we got three stretches. Now let's move on to something a little different. Let's move on to the gastroc. Okay. So the back
Gastroc.
of the lower leg, the calf muscle, the gastroc. A good one that I like to do is put your foot up on a wall where the balls of your foot are on the wall, toes are on the wall, and you're kind of leaning into it a little bit. So it's your front leg that you're stretching. And you're going to hold that again just to where it's comfortable. Now, this one can be a little biting, a little painful in the gastroc. We don't want to tear anything, like Wolfman said. We want to go gently into it, gradually into it. Just get a nice little stretch. Don't overdo it. Okay. If you go on the step and you put your foot on the step and your heel comes down, that's pretty aggressive, especially if you're someone that's, weighs more than, 100 pounds. That's kind of a lot of weight on the gastroc. So take it easy with that one. I see a lot of folks really aggressive with that stretch. You don't necessarily need
Yeah.
something that aggressive unless you're advised by a therapist or a doctor to do that kind of stretch. You can do it other ways. Take it easy. Be gentle.
Yes, I agree. I'm not a fan of the hanging calf stretch where people hang it off a ledge or off a step. Um, we aren't going to recover like Aaron Rodgers when you pop that Achilles.
Try not to pop the Achilles. The Achilles is a kind of a tough tendon to work with to rehab. We get that kind of a lot, but it's not the easiest thing to work with. It's not the easiest thing to rebound back from. So try not to mess with it too much. It is the weak part of the body in Greek mythology.
Yes. Yes. Um, all right. So here's number 5. You're going to sit on the ground. You'll hear this one called the cobbler's pose. It's another stretch for the inner thigh, but you're going to stretch both at the same time this time. Butterfly stretch, I've heard it called. You're going to put your feet together. You're pulling your heels in toward your crotch. What else do you call it? You're pulling your heels in toward your groin. Um, and then you're going to push down with your knees down with your elbows to get a nice stretch on that inner thigh. I like to tell people stay up tall with that. A lot of people like to round out for some reason, but stay tall and you're just kind of pushing the knees down. And then
Gently.
I tell people, yes, gently. Then you're going to back off a little bit and you're going to push a little bit.
Okay, so this is an adductor
Uh,
stretch,
this is an
and
adductor
it is
stretch in the
a
thighs.
a little bit intense, and it is a little bit uncomfortable. So do not, if you're new to stretching, or if you're new to this stretch, don't push hard. Just nice and easy. It might be enough to just let gravity do the work the first time or two.
Yeah, yeah. Again, if you're feeling a lot of pain, just back off. Yeah, gravity might be enough. Um, I think personally, I think those inner thigh muscles and the glute muscles, I think those stretches I um, probably feel the most, and I think loosen me up the most. But everybody's different.
So I just want to tell a little story here. So, we've had tons of patients we've treated over the years in our clinics. I want to just mention one particular incident. We had a patient come in. It wasn't my person, it was someone else's. This is many years ago, many moons ago, as they say, right? One of the therapists that had 30 some years experience was treating this patient. The patient was hypermobile. Now, what hypermobile means is that the patient was basically double jointed. They had extra laxity. They were able to do all kinds of stretching. Now, the patient was obsessed with stretching and kept saying, I need a better stretch. I need a better stretch. Not the case. The therapist was saying, you have too much mobility. You need to build muscle and strength and stability. Patient was saying, I need a stretch. I need a stretch. And wouldn't do what the therapist said, did the complete opposite of it. Now, listen, if you're a double jointed, hyper flexible kind of person, you probably need the opposite of stretching. Now, that doesn't mean you can't do some light stretching to get warmed up for the activity. That's fine, but not aggressive, prolonged stretching if you're hypermobile.
Yeah, if you're like Gumby, you don't need to be hammering the stretches.
If you don't know what Gumby is, look it up.
Gumby.
So, those are our 5 stretches and our story about what not to do when you're stretching. Okay. So, everybody pay attention, get out there, get some good stretches. If you have some stretches you want to throw out to the show, let us know. We'd be happy to
Yes.
kind of look at what you're doing and see if it's something that we think is worthwhile for our listeners to try out before they run or after they run. Remember, you can do either or. Before, after, during, you can do whatever you need to do to get yourself through the workout or the run.
Hmm. Yeah, send us an email. RunningwithMaverickandWolfman at yahoo.com.
That's right.
Or you could comment below somewhere. I don't know where they are. They're down there.
Guys, thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting the show. Thanks for watching on YouTube. We appreciate it.
Yes. And consider subscribing. It helps us come to people like you.
Maverick and Wolfman running out.